Hello, thank you for joining me at Bert's Books, where we are going to be looking back at Robert Westall's 1981 young adults novel, The Scarecrows. Now, Robert Westall is probably best known to many as the author of 1973's The Machine Gunners, a novel that seemed to populate pretty much every school library at a certain point in my childhood, and it depicted the confused and perhaps rather savage world of a boy on the edge of adolescence in the context of a militaristic backdrop. Now, as dark as that territory was, it stopped just short of the realms of the supernatural, unlike this later novel, which bagged Westall his second Carnegie Medal, and which arrived just at the point that scarecrow horror began to come into its own. The Scarecrows was published in the same year that Frank de Filletter's Dark Night of the Scarecrow was first televised. The sinister aspect of these everyday countryside objects was apparently now seeping into the realms of popular culture. I don't know if we can count Michael Jackson's appearance in The Wiz here, but images of that freaked the shit out of me. Now, this edition is a 80s Puffin Plus reprint. The cover image here depicts the core character, weirdly reminiscent of Grange Hill's Danny Kendall, which I'd take to indicate it's not quite aimed at the kids market, but to a slightly older demographic. Scarecrows tells the story of Simon Wood, a boarding school kid and an army brat, with an emphasis on brat, who's struggling to come to terms with the death of his much idolised father, a distinguished, if rather emotionally uptight, army officer who died at the age of 35 in the Middle East. Now, while Simon is our central protagonist, you can sympathise with him, at least up to a point, rather than actually like him. He's a prickly sort of customer. We first meet Simon in the dorm, the night of the school's annual fundraising, an occasion on which he is anticipating a visit by the Devils. The lights out whispering of the year's bully Bowden being the catalyst for this visitation. The previous year, Simon's mother had, against her son's silent imprecations, gamely took part in a tennis match against school staff and distinguished herself by whupping them. This, of course, had prompted some malign comments after nights out from Bowden, for which Simon, almost against his own will, gets out of bed, smacks his antagonist clean through the door of a lavvy cubicle, apparently losing all knowledge of his actions after the first punch and only coming to his senses once he's reduced Bowden to a snivelling heap on the lavvy floor. While it's not ungratifying to see this little shit get his, it also speaks of a near supernatural level of rage on Simon's part. It's obviously bubbling not far below the surface within his character. Bowden has avoided provoking Simon since then, but he's coming close this night through bullying another kid, Harris. Fortunately, the situation is diffused before Simon can fully let the Devils in. Later, Simon is idly reminiscing about his leather and brasso reeking father when it's announced to him that not only has his mum turned up to see him, she's in the company of a man with a white Range Rover, a man who's evidently not the right type. A yob. This yob, an out-of-shape bear of a man, is clearly unfazed by the disapproval pointed in his direction. He has the temerity to appear to be amused by the school. This is Joe Morton, an acquaintance of Mum's from the gallery that she works at. He's the celebrated cartoon artist for The Observer and Private Eye. Once his celebrity is realised, the various adults present at the open day abruptly change their attitude towards him, although Simon remains resolutely hostile. Once he's back home for the holes, Simon is suspicious at how much time his mum is flitting about enjoying herself at various events, and to the mysterious character that his younger sister, she has mates at the council school, that she is referring to as Uncle Bear. His worst fears are realised when he's enticed to a gallery event, which turns out to be exclusively dedicated to Morton's work. Skulking around the do, Simon knocks back a few sneaky white wines. He then conceals himself beneath a stack of furniture once he starts feeling a bit queasy, and from here he eavesdrops a couple of bitchy punters who are bad-mouthing both the artist and his latest bit of skirt, which of course is Simon's mum. Some way into the next term, Simon is abruptly called to the headmaster's house. It turns out that his mum has come to take him out for the afternoon, with the intention of breaking it to him that her and Joe are going to be a proper item, and she's going to be moving into his place in the countryside. She's not asking Simon, she's telling him. And which of his stuff does he want to keep or to pack down there? Simon's take on this is a highly petulant, "We're all right as we are," and he demands to be ferried back to the school pronto. He succeeds in negotiating a stay at the barracks with his dad's old army chum, Nunk, a sort of uncle figure, but this can't last forever, of course. Nunk tries to give Simon a bit of a talking to, in which he hilariously tries to rationalise that while of course Morton is quite the wrong sort, with no respect for authority, but when push comes to shove, sometimes those are the types who come through. It's weirdly redolent, in fact, of the headmaster's hair rebels speech in Lindsay Anderson's If. Simon reluctantly heads over to his mum's new home, but the devils start their mischief almost as soon as he gets through the door, provoked by the vision of coziness that Morton has already established with his mum and his sister. In another of his rages, Simon storms out, stomping across the countryside until he finds himself in the location of a disused watermill, whose owners apparently abandoned the place very little notice in early 1943. For no discernible reason. While the living accommodation there strikes Simon as reassuring and homely still, the mill section itself is dark, rank and forbidding. His discovery of a stray cat there with a new litter of kittens prompts Mum, Jane and Morton to investigate the place, although Morton recalls that his own mother had emphatically forbidden him to visit these premises as a child, and while he shows a bit of interest in the workings of the mill, he states that he'll probably never visit the place again. However, despite Simon's continual antagonistic manner against him, Morton at least supports Simon in adopting the more sickly of the cat's kittens and even pays the vet's bill for it. Simon encounters a local old-timer, something of a square peg named Mr. Merciful, who quickly figures that Simon's relationship with Morton isn't a harmonious one, and he intimates that Joe is not quite the local boy that he makes himself out to be. He's more of a wartime import from Manchester who never spent much of his childhood around the place. Simon is wary about giving too much away to this strange old bloke, but he then promptly gets into a blaring row with his sister, who's readily accepted Joe as her new dad, an act of treason towards their real father in Simon's eyes. At night in his attic room, Simon's resentment has isolated him into a claustrophobic corner of loneliness, which isn't alleviated when he finds a knothole above Joe and Mum's bedroom in his cupboard, and he eavesdrops on their private discussions, in which he's naturally a cause for concern. His mum is shockingly matter-of-fact with Joe regarding Simon's emotional frigidity, and the conversation also reveals some unpalatable truths to Simon about his martinet of a father. "He just took me like I was another fence, another parachute jump. Then he turned his back afterwards. I told you this wasn't quite a kid's book." Simon does not react well to this information, and the devils are back with him in a big way. On this occasion, the devils prompt Simon to dust off his dad's old uniform, polish up the buttons, and to sneakily arrange it provocatively on the chair in Joe and Mum's bedroom before they turn in for the night. I warned you he wasn't very likeable. The results exceed Simon's expectations. His mum is so upset by this gesture that Joe's usual bonhomie evaporates. He's sick of Simon's shit by now. He isn't backward in being physical about it. While on the one hand Simon is delighted to have caused such unhappiness and that he's effectively ruined that night's love-making session between the pair, he's also now aware that he can only push Joe so far before jarring repercussions begin to happen. Eavesdropping again through the hole in the cupboard, he hears his mum explain to Joe that Simon is the brood of a long line of killers, traceable from his father backwards. Simon is not up to the task of further malicious prankery this night, but he does ease himself out into the dark, where he orientates himself with the North Star as his father had taught him to. He then aligns himself to the direction in which his dad's far-off grave lies and attempts some deep communion with his pa, imploring for help from the deceased in his current plight. Something mysterious indeed does seem to stir in response to Simon's psychic efforts, but as a brilliantly chilling passage informs us, not in the distant military graveyard in the Middle East. In this neglected outpost, Simon's father sleeps on undisturbed. The next morning Simon is lurking around the house in a semi-reconciliatory manner, but it's evident that he's truly in the shithouse here, even with the cats. In the light of day, Simon realises that during the previous night's ceremony he'd in fact been facing in the exact direction where the old watermill lies, before which in the field 3 scarecrows, the figures of 2 men and a woman, have mysteriously and ominously appeared. What really are these mysterious figures? What is their relationship to the old mill and to each other? And from what dark recesses of local history do they originate? Can Old Merciful shed any light on such mysteries? And above everything else, what do they want with Simon? I'm not going to spoil it for you. Westall's book is one of those young person's novels. Puffin books in this period were particularly good for these, which remain eminently readable in adulthood. Anyway, the conciseness of the format provides an efficiently readable supernatural thriller. As with The Machine Gunners, Westall takes us unflinchingly into the heart of darkness of early adolescence within the context of an uptight English garrison mentality upbringing. Now, I sort of tried to sympathise with Simon throughout all this, but he's a really difficult character to like, which I think is unusual and quite a daring step on the author's part, particularly considering the age demographic that really this was pitched at. The book explores the emotional instability and casual malice that can come with early teendom, and its obliviousness to the consequences of spite, which in this case are far beyond anything that the protagonist would have bargained for. The backstory also reveals a less than idealised, under the floorboards view of British society during wartime and its aftermath. This is a superb bit of work, and that second Carnegie Medal was richly deserved.
A mango wurzel is me head. I got the carrot for me nose, but they wasn't Wurzel's choice. Oh no, they was what the Crowman chose. And when he give me life, you see,